Hello again from Karawa. In this video we take the boat for a run around Bocas Del Toro and use the dinghy as well to explore. We also show some of our daily tasks and some of our other maintenance tasks. As we prepare to leave the marina, Leslie is topping up the freshwater tank with shore water. We put a sediment filter on, but not a carbon filter because we still want the minerals in the water. Of course, one of the daily tasks is preparing breakfast and using the wonderful fresh fruit that you can get in Bocas del Toro. It's one of the things that I really enjoy about being in this region, is that every week we go ashore and get some excellent pawpaw or papaya, pineapple, bananas, guavas, and mangoes. Here the Admiral's also making sure that we take our vitamins, and then she's on about the 10th loaf of bread attempt, trying to get a decent loaf of bread out of the bread maker. But one of the things we always do. Of course, another essential thing is doing all the dobie, all the washing, and then we go on to less exciting things.
So this is the state of the dinghy tubes when we took it out the water in Red Frog, and now we're cleaning it with a product called FSR. So this is the starboard side well, we've cleaned a little bit in the bow, but before we've started major cleaning in the aft section. And here, 20 minutes later, beautifully clean.
You would have noticed that we did not just suspend the dinghy from the davit and go underneath and clean it. Some people did suggest that, and I pointed out to them that working over an overhanging device is really not a very good safety issue. So I much prefer to find a way to lower it onto the deck in a way that we can make the underside much more accessible. 9 times out of 10 it would be fine, but if that line was to part, that Dyneema line was to part, you would have some severe injuries, if not death. As if you haven't had enough dinghy, now we're going to do the launching. Launching is by means of the hydraulic davit.
First things first, we have to put the plug in the dinghy so that when it hits the water it doesn't instantly start filling up with water. And then the next thing is to lower the hook from the crane so that we can attach the launch lines from the dinghy. That's what Frank's busy doing now. He's just getting the lines ready to attach to the hook while I take the ladder out. We use the ladder to climb down into the dinghy once it's in the water.
So Leslie called it a crane, I called it a davit. We sort of interchanged these. The other thing we would have done as well is switch the battery on, put the key into the ignition so that when she does climb down she's able to drive away and she's able to test everything before we decouple the dinghy from the crane.
What we're doing now is just ensuring that the crane is a little bit forward of the center of the dinghy so that when we lift it off the cradle, the dinghy swings away from its latches, which are on the aft end near the engine.
Yeah, and we're also making sure it's centered from a port and starboard point of view.
So now we have to lift it slowly. We don't want any sudden jerking movements when it escapes from the latches.
Yeah, you also don't want to lift it too high because otherwise it just hits the top of the
railings,
the latches, and then it won't swing free. So in that position, once it's in position, then you'll find I will walk forward as I'm going now. The reason being,
well, I'm not strong enough to pull the dinghy out from its secure spot. So Frank pulls it out, which releases it. I mean, you have to pull the whole boat and engine. It's very heavy. So now we each take our lines. There it's getting lifted up now. We each take our lines just to control it, control the swing once it's airborne.
Airborne? Was it a plane or something? Yeah.
Flying dinghy.
Then we move it gently out. I put the davit arm 90 degrees, and then by means of lowering the davit arm and lowering the wiring, we lower the boat down to the water.
Around Bocas Del Toro there are dolphins everywhere, not only in Dolphin Bay. And we saw these very close to Kariwa. We were going out on the dinghy, going somewhere in the morning, and we saw a tour boat full of tourists. And obviously they were watching these dolphins. The dolphins weren't feeding, they just frolicking and playing and having fun, and they weren't bothered by us being there at all.
With the drone up, I can show you a luxury resort at the top of Dolphin Bay. And here is Kariwa anchored. As we swing around, you see the whole expanse of Dolphin Bay. Whenever you blink in Bocas del Toro, it might start raining. When we next moved, it was time for the Admiral to get some steering and navigation practice. You come around gently. We took Kariwa through Dolphin Bay and out the channel at the south end into the next bay, where the anchoring was at 55 to 60 feet. We put over 200 feet of chain out, but we needn't have worried because the holding was extremely good. Here you can see Kariwa lying at anchor in the next bay. Putting the drone up again and looking directly into Dolphin Bay from where we were anchored, we swing round to the south, showing the whole expanse looking east, and swinging around to the mainland. Bocas del Toro is made up of 9 main islands, and they are quite far apart, which makes for great cruising grounds. Here you see Shepherd Island, or Isla Pastoras, and directly ahead is Almirante, the main town on the mainland of Panama in this area. And then we come round to show Bocas del Toro and Salate and Bastimentos. While anchored in the other bay, we brought the dinghy round back into Dolphin Bay on an early morning dinghy ride with coffee. And this is my perspective of our dolphins. It was a lovely morning's ride.
At the same time Frank was filming me filming, this is what I got, the footage I got of the very same dolphins. And dolphins are really fun animals. We never ever get bored of seeing them, and we can follow them for as long as they'll tolerate us. Always fun to encounter them.
As long as we don't harass them.
Later that day we went on the dinghy to Isla Pastoras, which is also called Shepherd Island. It's one of the smaller islands in the archipelago, and it's a very pretty island. You can see the coral reef fringe around a lot of the island. Here we've got the drone following us on the dinghy, and you can see the depth of the water and how close to shore it becomes deep. So this is just more shots of us having fun with the drone on the dinghy. We were actually now leaving to go back towards Kariwa, the mothership. Here's a guy and his wife in their Pango with a 2-stroke engine on their way home from work.
Depending on where we are, we'll bring up the dinghy on board at night. Here we're bringing it on board because we're going to get an early start to go back around to the Red Frog anchorage, because there's another Nordhavn coming in and we wanted to be there to greet them the next day. This is N57 Laura Jane coming in to Red Frog Marina with the new owners and James Knight, aka Dr. Nordhavn. They'd run up from Shelter Bay overnight. So that's all, folks. On our next video we will document a run down from Bocas to Shelter Bay. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us. Until next time, that's all, folks.